Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, we'll be doing episode 346, Balance of Power. The episode begins with Ash having entered the Petalburg City gym, taking his side of the field, as Norman took the opposite side of the field, and Ash told Norman that he was ready for the match. Norman agreed and admitted to Ash that he'd been waiting for another fight with Ash ever since their last battle, last time he was in Petalburg, and Ash said he was more than willing to prove to Norman that he had improved, and declared that he was going to win, making Norman excited as he knew the battle would be good. From the sidelines, May, Brock, Max, and Caroline were watching, and May stated that she couldn't wait to see the battle, believing it would be super good, and stated her belief that Ash may actually be able to pull off a win, but this angered Max, stating that May should be rooting for her father, and should only think that it would be possible he could win, as that's what he believed, and he knew that that was true. Brock tells Max to calm down, and May informs Max that she'd actually come to the conclusion that she didn't really care who wins. She was just stating who she thought would win, and she'd be happy with either outcome. This just made Max even angrier, who pointed out that May shouldn't even think of the possibility of Ash winning, since no one could beat Norman, since he was very strong and could be a member of the Elite Four soon, and said that he couldn't wait to see Ash learn that he shouldn't have underestimated his father the hard way. May was caught off guard by Max's yelling, and Caroline calmed Max down by rubbing his shoulders and telling him to just relax and enjoy the match, with May agreeing and stating that Max should just not really care about who won like May did, and just enjoy the fact that he could actually watch this match, as he had never been able to watch one of Norman's battles before. So, Max tried to oblige, as he watched Ash and Norman stare each other down, preparing for the first Pokemon that they were each going to send out. As for Kenny, he was in the gym as well, and he was the ref, actually, holding the red and green flags, one for Ash and one for Norman, so that whenever a Pokemon was unable to battle, he could use it to declare. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were off somewhere inside a cave behind a waterfall, where a whole bunch of boxes and lights were inside the cave. These boxes, as well as the lights, were supplies for their new secret Team Rocket base that they were going to construct in this cave, just as Giovanni had instructed them to. Well, he didn't instruct them to do this cave specifically, but, he ordered them to make a secret base. So Meowth then pulled out a blueprint and slammed it down on one of the boxes, informing Jesse and James that this cave would be the site for the long-awaited Hoenn Team Rocket headquarters. As Meowth guided Jesse and James through the blueprint he designed, Jesse and James were amazed by it, with Jesse saying that the boss Giovanni would be pleased by the base as well, and Team Rocket proceeded to get teary-eyed, thinking about how their hard work would finally pay off, since they would get some praise from Giovanni. And Meowth added that Giovanni would be so happy that he would give Team Rocket their long-awaited promotion, and perhaps put them entirely in charge of the Hoenn Team Rocket division, and Team Rocket all cheered at this, proud of themselves for getting a promotion before they even got the goddamn promotion. Also, were Team Rocket literally the only Team Rocket members in Hoenn? Because Butch and Cassidy aren't in Hoenn. There's no other members that are in Hoenn, guys. I think you guys are already at the top, but anyways. Wobbuffet then forcibly popped out his Pokeball to help Team Rocket as they started construction in the cave on their brand new secret base, thinking of getting corporate credit cards for themselves, so that they could spend some of Team Rocket's money, like the actual organization's money, which Team Rocket definitely had a lot of, because Team Rocket was one of the biggest criminal organizations ever, so, Anyways, back at the gym. Kenny, being the referee, officially announced the rules of the match, being that it would be a 3-on-3 battle, but only Ash was allowed to substitute his Pokemon, and also there would be no time limit. Kenny then raised the two flags, signaling for the match to begin, as Norman told Ash to make this a great battle, and Norman started things off by sending out his first Pokemon, Slackoth, to which Ash responded by sending out Pikachu as his first Pokemon. Norman tells Ash that he hoped Pikachu was stronger since their last battle, and Ash tells Pikachu to prove this to Norman by showing off its speed and going for a quick attack, which Pikachu obliged to, but Slackoth dodged by sidestepping away. Surprising May and Max, as Slackoth then goes for a Shadow Ball. However, Pikachu dodges this by jumping out of the way, and then he tries to attack with Iron Tail, but Iron Tail ends up missing because Slackoth ducks. However, Pikachu still goes in for the Iron Tail, but this causes Pikachu to spin and get dizzy in midair. Since, it had to spin to release the Iron Tail, but since it wasn't stop spinning when it hit the Iron Tail, when it couldn't hit the Iron Tail, it became super dizzy and dazed and fell to the ground, leading Ash to realize that Pikachu's speed was no match for Slackoth's dodging abilities. Max then tells his father to finish off the battle, and May began to wonder if Pikachu could really pull it off, as Norman then ordered a hidden power to end off the battle. As Pikachu tried to dodge, as Slackoth laid the circle that was the hidden power, but the circle surrounded Pikachu, as it wasn't able to escape. Brock warned Ash to watch out for hidden power, since it was unpredictable, since hidden power had the ability to really summon a variety of types of attacks, kind of like Metronome. In order to counter whatever the hidden power was going to throw at him, Ash told Pikachu to use Thunderbolt, but before Pikachu could do this, just as it started electrifying its cheeks, the circle closed in, creating an explosion that sent Pikachu flying all the way towards Ash across the battlefield. Ash begged his Pokemon to get up, and Pikachu weakly regained its footing. Max was very pleased with the power of hidden power, no pun intended, while May was just in awe at how fast Slackoth is, not being able to believe it. Although Brock butted in, explaining that while Slackoth was fast, Ash could use one thing to its advantage. May and Max asked what this was, leading Brock to explain what Norman's strategy was in regards to attacks and movements, and how Ash could use it to his advantage. Basically, Brock stated that from past experience of watching Ash throughout all his previous journeys throughout Kanto, Johto, and now Hoenn, he knew that Ash usually favored using Pikachu as his first Pokemon, and using his powerful speed attacks to knock the enemy off balance, and then gain control of the battle from there, explaining that the speed usually caught the Pokemon off guard, both physically and mentally. However, Brock noted that Slackoth could simply just dodge any speedy or powerful attack Pikachu would launch, since Slackoth was very slow for the most part, but if it had to dodge, it could speed up, so that meant that Norman could basically make Slackoth be slow when it wasn't dodging, like Slackoth was supposed to be, because, it was a sloth Pokemon. And if Slackoth was slow during the actual battle, but could be fast to dodge attacks, this basically meant that Pikachu couldn't win either way, because Slackoth could slowly get the win and fight at its own pace, not having to overexert itself by going fast, and if it had to go fast to dodge attacks, then it could. So basically Slackoth had the perfect balance. And because of this, Norman had control over the match. Caroline agreed with what Brock said, reasoning that she had saw plenty of Norman's gym battles, so Norman usually went with a strategy like this, basically switching between slow and fast to catch the opponent off guard and using the different speeds to his advantage, while Max was just glad his father had control over the battlefield. Although Brock reminded everyone that he said that Ash could use Norman's strategy to his advantage, bringing up how Slackoth did have speed, but, like he pointed out already, it was also slow due to being lazy. Everyone was kind of confused how Ash could use Slackoth's laziness and slowness to his advantage, but Brock simply said that Slackoth didn't like to move very much, aside from when it was dodging. And they looked and saw that this was true, as Slackoth was just sitting there, barely even swaying back and forth, and barely breathing. They all wondered how Ash could use this to his advantage, even though Brock thought it was pretty obvious. I mean, just wait for when Slackoth is super slow, and then when you get the and then try and get the chance to sneak up on Slackoth and attack it before it can get fast. And he knew that Ash should be able to pull this off because of an ability that he somewhat knew about, known as Truant, that Slackoth, Vigoroth, and Slacking had. That basically caused a Pokemon to loaf around after doing a speedy or good attack, and sure enough, Slackoth was in this state right now. But anyways, back to the actual battle. As Pikachu recovered, getting back up and shaking itself to regain energy, Ash realized that speedy attacks likely weren't the best way to go right now, and he needed to change his strategy away from quick attack, so he tried long-range electric attacks, ordering Pikachu to use Thunderbolt. Slackoth's Truant clearly wasn't in full effect though, as Slackoth dodged the Thunderbolt and prevented Pikachu from using a second one by using a Blizzard, and since the Blizzard was so cold, Pikachu couldn't attack period, as it fell to the ground, and tried to hang on to the ground so that it wouldn't be blown off into the wall. Even Ash was feeling the effects of the Blizzard, as it was cold as fuck, and May, Caroline, Max, and Brock from the stands were feeling the effects of it as well. Ash tries to order another Thunder, but Pikachu was too frozen, so it still couldn't attack, so Ash ended up making the decision to recall Pikachu, substituting him out for Torkoal instead, right as the Blizzard happened to stop. May questioned what Ash was planning to do with Torkoal, leaving Brock to remind May that fire attacks were good against ice attacks like Blizzard, and sure enough, Torkoal used a flamethrower on Slackoth, to which Slackoth countered with Blizzard, forcing May to hold a cloth to wipe her sweat, exclaiming that the temperature was currently fluctuating, as she was in just the right spot on the bench that even Caroline, Max, and Brock weren't in, to feel both the Blizzard and the flamethrower, so it was a very mixed and weird feeling. Sure enough, the flamethrower was able to break through the Blizzard, completely destroying it, and the flamethrower smashes into Slackoth, blowing it right back into Norman's hands as he catches it, and Slackoth coughs up smoke from the flamethrower before being knocked out, leaving Kenny to declare Torkoal the victor, as Torkoal lets out a literal cry of victory, with tears and everything, as Ash laughed embarrassingly at Torkoal's behavior. Max was a bit sad and in awe that his father had just lost, although Caroline just comments that she found the battle exciting. May wondered why Caroline wasn't rooting for Norman, because, they were husband and wife after all, leading Caroline to admit that she didn't really care who won, just like May. She just cared if the match was exciting or not, and it was. As you can imagine, Max got mad at this because he wanted his mother to root for Norman, but Caroline just comforted Max by rubbing his shoulders again, trying to tell him that everything would work out the way it was supposed to. Norman then admitted to Ash he was impressed by his choice to call Pikachu back and not just rely on his ace, and admitted that Ash and Pikachu did put up a tough fight, and so did Torkoal, but confidently stated that once a Pokemon that Ash was more than familiar with entered the battle, he had no chance. Ash knew who Norman was talking about, as he sent out his Vigoroth as his second Pokemon, who Ash remembered obviously from both last episode and the time that he battled it before, and knew that Vigoroth would be tough to beat. The battle between Torkoal and Vigoroth then began, as Torkoal started things off with an overheat, but Vigoroth just jumped out of the way to dodge, making Ash shocked that Vigoroth wasn't as lazy as Slackoth, and was able to dodge by actually jumping instead of just moving backwards or leaning back. Just then, Norman ordered Vigoroth to use a Scratch combined with a Slash, and it does so, right in Torkoal's face, knocking Torkoal out in a single hit, leading Ash to stare completely shocked at Torkoal's knocked out body, as Kenny officially declares Vigoroth the winner, making the score 1-1, as Norman congratulates Vigoroth as it twists its arms, pumping itself up. May was super shocked that Vigoroth was able to take out Torkoal in one attack, and wondered if the match would end right away, with Max remarking that Ash wouldn't stand a chance now, and he got excited at this. Brock then stated something he had realized about Slackoth going to Vigoroth, stating that though Slackoth was lazy, Vigoroth took all the energy it didn't use as a Slackoth and unleashed it in a constant tantrum. So basically, Slackoth didn't use much energy so that they could use all the spare energy they had in one go. And Brock stated that because of this, Norman was able to confuse Ash by going from a Pokemon like Slackoth that could go fast if it absolutely needed to, but was primarily slow, to a Pokemon like Vigoroth that was fast all the time, in order to test Ash's limits, explaining that using Slackoth immediately before Vigoroth would confuse any opponent, since the skills necessary to defeat Vigoroth were way different from skills used to defeat Slackoth, so it would require a very fast change-up, which most trainers weren't ready for, even Ash. As for Ash, he was frustrated as hell that Torkoal was down, and knew that since Torkoal was down, he needed to send in another Pokemon, and decided on Pikachu so that it could have its long-awaited rematch with Vigoroth, intriguing Norman, as he wanted to see if Pikachu had improved enough to defeat its rival, leading Ash to say confidently that Pikachu would be victorious. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, Wobbuffet was being annoying, helping Meowth yell at Jesse and James for not following his directions on how to build the secret base. yelling through a megaphone, refusing to do any work himself, and leaving it all to Jesse and James, leading Jesse and James to moan in annoyance, and questioning Meowth why he isn't helping, leading Meowth to reply that someone had to be the overseer of construction, but James and Jesse rebutted that Meowth was not fit to be the overseer since he was terrible with directions, but Meowth rebutted, though, the opposite, being that he was the perfect overseer since he was way smarter than Jesse and James. This angered Jesse and James, and they only got more angry as Meowth simply ordered Jesse and James to quit complaining and work harder, so Jesse and James dropped a crate that they were moving right on him, and threatening to keep this box on him until he helps out as well. However, Meowth doesn't respond, so Jesse and James think that they finally shut him up, which they were also fine with, although Meowth then peeked out from under and said that as punishment for Team Rocket doing this to him, he would make them work double time, but Team Rocket just pushed harder on the crate. Meowth angrily threatens to hire new workers, but Jesse and James just refuse this and press harder on the crate, making Meowth faint, so he was finally not being annoying, so they could at least work in peace. Although Wobbuffet was still being annoying, much to their dismay. Meanwhile, back to the gym battle, it was time for Pikachu versus Vigoroth, and Ash started off by having Pikachu use Thunderbolt, but Vigoroth dodged by jumping onto a wall. And then it bounced off the wall and came in for a slash combined with a scratch. But before the attack could land, Pikachu countered with Iron Tail, using it to hit Vigoroth's claw, blocking the scratch attack. May and Max were shocked, as Vigoroth being hit by the Iron Tail caused it to go flying back, although Vigoroth caught Pikachu off guard by launching a flamethrower straight at it, sending Pikachu flying back, although it lands on its feet, still steaming from the fire, though still very determined to win. Max expressed how amazing it was that Vigoroth could use an attack like Flamethrower, stating how his father knew exactly how to counter Ash, although Caroline countered that Ash knew exactly how to counter Norman as well, since Ash's strength and determination had apparently forced Norman to change his strategy. Max questioned what Caroline meant by this, leading Caroline to reveal that Norman was fighting Ash more seriously than he fights normal trainers, so that was definitely a change of strategy for him, instead of his usual carefree attitude. As for May, after she saw the flamethrower, she encouraged Ash to find a way to bounce back and not give up, and suggested that, maybe, if he wanted an advantage, he should swap out his Pokémon. Though Brock cut her off, reminding her that she was supposed to be neutral in this battle, and not care who won. May remembers this, and covers her mouth. And Brock also explains that Ash substituting Pikachu would be a bad idea, even though he knew Pikachu was getting weak and wouldn't last much longer, because if Ash substituted his Pikachu for another Pokemon, this would be his last fully healthy Pokemon. So if that Pokemon went down, then all Ash would have left would be a severely injured Pikachu. So he suggested instead that Ash just use Pikachu as long as possible, so that he would at least have a fully healthy Pokemon as a backup for a longer period of time, to take a bit of the pressure off. Norman then taunts Ash, suggesting that he give up because Vigoroth was too fast, although Norman was joking, as he wanted the battle to go on as long as possible, and Ash refused anyways, and he tried to think of a way to get past Vigoroth's speed and potentially slow it down, and he eventually came up with a plan, telling Pikachu to use Quick Attack, and it did so. Running towards Vigoroth, leading Vigoroth to use a whole bunch of flamethrowers, but Pikachu uses its speed to dodge every single one, and gets closer to Vigoroth, leading Norman to order Vigoroth to try a scratch instead, but Norman was surprised, as Ash tells Pikachu to just take the hit. So, that's exactly what Pikachu does, as Scratch Attack hits Pikachu hard, as Pikachu stopped moving. Vigoroth was shocked as well, although Vigoroth and Norman soon realized what Ash's plan was. Since Pikachu had been hit by a physical attack, it triggered its hidden ability known as Static, which in turn paralyzed Vigoroth, confusing Vigoroth even more. Ash had known of Pikachu's ability after doing some training with Brock off-screen, apparently, I guess. I don't know how he figured it out, but he must have figured it out somehow. But May was curious as to what had happened, leading Brock to explain that certain electric Pokemon had the hidden ability Static, which had the ability to paralyze foes that physically attacked them, with May commenting that this could turn the tide of the match, as Vigoroth wouldn't be nearly as fast anymore due to its paralysis. Vigoroth tries to go away from Pikachu as to not get hit, but it was too slow, so Pikachu was able to hit it with Iron Tail before it got very far, knocking Vigoroth to the ground and knocking it unable to battle, leading Kenny to declare Pikachu the winner of the next battle, meaning the score was now 2-1 in Ash's favor. Ash congratulated Pikachu, but he was shocked as Pikachu suddenly collapsed, and Kenny declared it defeated as well, meaning that the score was actually now 2-2, tied up, and everyone stared in shock at the fact that pretty much a double knockout had just happened, and Ash apologized to Pikachu, knowing that it lost because it was overexerted, having battled too much, and it had sustained too many wounds. Ash then picked up Pikachu from the battlefield and gave it to Brock so Brock could take care of it, as Brock commented on how rare a double knockout was, and Ash returned to the battlefield. Norman then told Ash how impressed he was by how much he had improved, and stated how he was sad that this good battle would be coming to an end, as the next round would definitely be the last round, since they both only had one Pokemon left. Upon hearing how Ash and Norman both only had one Pokemon left, Max questioned why Norman wasn't super focused on trying to defeat Ash, and was instead complimenting him, leading Caroline to state that as a gym leader, Norman had to keep his cool and be kind to his challengers, and also added that Norman was having a great time, so he wasn't really that concerned whether he would win or lose. He was just concerned about having a good time right now. Although at the same time, that didn't mean that Norman would go easy on Ash in this last battle either, as Ash sent out his Grovyle as his last Pokemon, and Norman sent out his Slacking as his last Pokemon, leaving May and Caroline shocked that Slacking was actually awake. The battle then began as Grovyle started off with a Bullet Seed, but Slacking just uses Endure and blocks the attack with its hands as the Bullet Seeds explode on its hands, but its hands were completely uninjured thanks to the Endure. Brock then pointed out how strong Slacking's hands were, and stated that they were especially strong due to Slacking being a lazy Pokemon, so since it was so lazy and slow, it was used to having to deflect attacks instead of counter them with its own attacks. Grovyle then tries going in for a Leaf Blade, but Slacking catches Grovyle off guard as it catches the Leaf Blade mid-swipe and uses the Leaf Blade to its advantage as it grabs Grovyle by the Leaf Blade and throws it on the ground across the stadium. May thought that Grovyle would have been able to avoid something like this happening because it was so fast, but Brock mentioned that while Grovyle had speed, Slacking had pure power, which in this case was able to beat up speed. Slacking then goes in for a Focus Punch, but Grovyle launches a Bullet Seed at its face before Slacking could get the attack off. Although, other than stopping the attack, it didn't really look injured from the Bullet Seed at all. It was only just angered, and it was so angered that it attacked in rage with a powerful Earthquake, standing up tall and pounding its hands on its chest to do so. May, Max, Brock, and Caroline initially thought that the battle was anyone's match, but as the Earthquake made the battlefield shake, they began to think that Norman may have had this in the bag. Meanwhile, back with Team Rocket. Team Rocket were now in the process of trying to expand their actual base space as they began digging, and ended up expanding their base to underneath the gym somehow. So, when Slacking used Earthquake, they felt it as well, and began to panic, wondering if the cave would cave in on them. No pun intended. Even Meowth's little green collar that he had put on to try and declare himself as the surveyor, once again, was shaking. When, just then, a large group of Dugtrio popped out from underground, out of nowhere, and began leaving the area. It seemed as though the Dugtrio were alerted by the Earthquake, so they were trying to escape from underground. Although Jessie mistaked the Dugtrio as being the cause of the Earthquake, and was mad at them, so she angrily kicked a rock at them. Wobbuffet then put on a hard hat, as the Earthquake was getting pretty bad, and he feared that rocks would fall down on him, but there was bigger concerns, as Jessie had ended up angering the entire group of Dugtrio, and they began to chase Team Rocket in a circle around their cave, as Team Rocket screamed in fear. Meanwhile, back up at the gym, the chasing being done by the Dugtrio was actually making the Earthquake worse, although Ash knew that Grovyle was suffering from this Earthquake, so he stepped back off the stadium so he himself wasn't affected as well, as even he could feel it, and he ordered Grovyle to jump in the air to avoid the Earthquake, and then slam down on Slacking, using a pound. Grovyle tries to do this, but Slacking intercepts the pound by catching Grovyle's head leaf, and then it spins the Pokemon around and tosses Grovyle straight into the ceiling. Ash noticed that Grovyle was extremely weak, and was still on the ceiling, but regardless, Ash told it to try a Bullet Seed, leading Grovyle to launch itself from the ceiling and release the Bullet Seed mid-air, although Slacking counters with Hyper Beam, so the two attacks collided. Although the Hyper Beam just appeared to have more natural strength, so even though Grovyle tried its best to have Bullet Seed overpower it, the opposite happened as Hyper Beam overpowered the Bullet Seed and smashed into Grovyle, causing Grovyle to land hard on the ground as Slacking pumps itself up by pumping its chest, making May worried that the battle was over, but Brock stated his belief that Grovyle wouldn't give up yet. And sure enough, Grovyle, although weak, got up and glared at Slacking angrily, surprising not only Ash, who wondered how Grovyle still had energy left, but also all of Ash's friends and Caroline, as well as Norman. Although Norman knew that Grovyle couldn't take much more, and suggested that, for Grovyle's safety, Ash withdraw from the match, even though he didn't want Ash to have to give up, pointing out that a trainer should know when their Pokemon has had enough, and it stated that it looked like Grovyle had, as it was struggling to get on its feet, and it had taken a lot of damage. Ash saw that Norman was probably right, and reluctantly went to go call in Grovyle and forfeit the match, but Grovyle stopped him, indicating that it wanted to still battle, and Ash asked if this was the case, and if it could still go on, and Grovyle nodded. Ash was more than okay with Grovyle's want, as he really didn't want to forfeit to begin with, and he told Grovyle that they had to show Norman what they were made of, and find a way to damage Slacking, and Grovyle suddenly began to growl, and a green flame surrounded it, including Ash and Norman, as well as Caroline, who was happy Grovyle was back in the match, so the battle could end in a fair way. Although Max and May questioned what the fuck was even happening to Grovyle, leading Brock to explain that Grovyle was now using its own ability, known as Overgrow, which strengthened grass attacks whenever grass Pokemon were weakened, stating his belief that Grovyle was able to suddenly trigger its Overgrow ability thanks to Ash showing it its support, as well as all the other Pokemon that were defeated in the battle showing Grovyle its support, so Torkoal and Pikachu. Basically, Brock thought that Grovyle was motivated by the support of his fallen comrades, as well as Ash. Because it was overall pretty miraculous, because Ash figured out that Pikachu could use Static before the gym battle, but this Overgrow thing was totally new. Slacking, knowing that it would have to go for a powerful attack, goes for an Earthquake, but Grovyle dodges by jumping onto the wall. Though Slacking clumsily walks over to Grovyle on the wall and tries to grab it off the wall, but Grovyle just does some sweet-ass acrobatics as it jumps off the wall into Slacking's hands, though it kicks off Slacking's hands and bounces back onto the wall, therefore weakening Slacking and not getting captured. Norman was shocked by Grovyle's agile movements, as it then bounced off the wall again onto Slacking's hands and hit Slacking again before bouncing back onto the wall, and it repeated this several times before Norman took action and ordered a Hyper Beam. And the Hyper Beam goes towards Grovyle, who is now on the wall, but Grovyle jumps onto the wall on the other side of the stadium to dodge the beam, catching Slacking off guard, allowing Grovyle to jump off the wall that it just got on, straight onto Slacking's face, using a pound on it. May, Brock, and Pikachu were all very excited as to how well Grovyle was battling, although Norman told Ash that it would take more than a pound to defeat his Slacking, commenting that Slacking wasn't tired at all, as it merely just shrugged off the pound. And Norman then taunted Ash, stating that if he really wanted to win, maybe he should stop bouncing off the walls and go in for a total direct attack, telling Ash that even though Grovyle's speed was good, he couldn't win with just speed alone. Slacking then went in to hit Grovyle with a Focus Punch, and Ash took Norman's advice, telling Grovyle to speed towards Slacking, but not just use speed, and use a Leaf Blade once it got towards Slacking. So Grovyle did this, hitting Slacking with a Leaf Blade, as Slacking also hit it with his Focus Punch, right at the same time. startling everyone and causing them to blink. But thankfully, when everyone opened their eyes, they didn't miss anything, as Grovyle and Slacking were now standing back to back, still having just finished their attacks. So Norman and Ash waited eagerly to see who would fall first, knowing that this had to have been the final attack, as they saw that both Slacking and Grovyle were pretty tired now. Suddenly, Grovyle smiled, thinking that Slacking was about to fall, but then it started to fall a bit, making everyone gasp, thinking that it was over, but Grovyle then catches itself, but Slacking didn't know this, and it grinned itself, thinking that it has won, but then Slacking felt its injuries and couldn't withstand them anymore, collapsing to the ground, knocked out, leading Kenny to declare Grovyle the winner of the round, and Ash as the winner of the entire battle. Norman congratulates Slacking for putting up such a tough fight, as he recalls it, and Caroline compliments both Norman and Ash, saying that them and their Pokemon both put up a great fight, and was just happy that the battle was entertaining. May, Brock, and Pikachu then congratulate Ash on his victory, as Pikachu almost jumps out of Brock's arms in excitement, although they realize that Max didn't say anything, so Caroline tries to get Max's attention, thinking he zoned out or some shit, and asked what he had to say, but Max doesn't say anything, except look down, completely pissed off, staring at his feet in disbelief that his father actually lost. With the battle done, Ash and the gang, Norman and Caroline, go outside the gym, and Norman presents Ash with his reward for beating him, his long-awaited 5th Hone Gym badge, the Balance Badge, admitting that he enjoyed the battle a lot. Ash thanks Norman and prepares to take the badge, but right before Ash could grab it from him, Max cuts in between them and takes the badge and rushes off. And then he goes inside the gym's greenhouse and then locks himself inside of the training room inside the greenhouse that had since had the door repaired from when Team Rocket destroyed it last episode. Ash and the gang, Norman and Caroline give chase and beg Max to come out, but he refuses, and he starts to cry, upset about his father's loss, wanting to know why he lost, not being willing to accept that Ash could possibly win because he thought that his father was unbeatable. May then cuts in, explaining that their dad was a fucking gym leader. It was basically his job to lose. If he didn't lose, then people couldn't participate in the Hone League. And she stated that it was difficult for her to see her dad lose too. She didn't really want to see her dad lose, but the important thing was that Norman fought his best to try and win. He didn't just give up immediately. Max disagreed with May, stating that it was unacceptable for Norman to lose a match, and it wasn't okay for a trainer as strong as Norman to lose at all in a Pokemon battle. And states that if Norman lost, then he shouldn't even have the right to be a goddamn gym leader. And states that if May didn't feel the same way, then she can fuck off. And May was hurt by this, so she was just like, alright, I'll fuck off, fuck you, I'm not talking to you anymore. So Brock tries to convince Max to come out, but Max tells him to fuck off as well. So Norman tries his luck instead, demanding that Max come out, stating that he would not give up being a gym leader because he loved being a gym leader, and he knew that as a gym leader, he eventually had to come across a great trainer that would have to defeat him, and he accepted this already. He accepted it a long time ago, and Max should as well, and also added that Max should be happy that it was his friend that defeated him, as opposed to a trainer that he didn't even know. I mean, Ash defeating Norman was better than just a random nobody. And Norman then added that a gym leader wouldn't grow unless he learned from his defeat, saying that losing was just as important as winning, and life's most important lessons were learned through losing. When Max still doesn't come out, he tries one more reasoning, being that Ash and his Grovyle deserve to win, since they didn't give up and discovered a strength they did not know about, being the Overgrow ability, and states that Ash and Grovyle's bond that likely helped achieve this reminded himself of how special May and Max and Caroline were to him, and how important his bond to them and his Pokemon was to him. So he was happy to lose to Ash, as opposed to anyone else. Max had started to get convinced by what Norman had been saying, and started to wipe away his tears, as Ash added his comments as well to fully make Max feel better, stating that he got stronger by battling against Norman, and that was really all that mattered to him. He realized that he didn't even need a badge anyways, because he got stronger without it. Max was especially touched by what Ash said, so he finally stepped out of the room and opened the door. Max then apologized to everyone and thanked them all for the advice, as he stated to Norman that when he got old enough and got his own Pokemon, he would battle Norman as well. And Norman accepted this challenge, stating that he was looking forward to battling his son one day, as Max then gave Ash the Balance Badge for real, stating that Ash won it fair and square. Ash thanks him, and was very happy to have his 5th Hone Gym badge, as he does his usual celebratory badge pose. 5 badges down, 3 more to go.